everyone, it's Sharon here. I've got something a bit different to share today. This card features stamping and watercolouring, so no die cutting, which makes a change. I've got some stamp sets from Alpaca Pals by Tracey Hey. The sets I've got are First Class Cuties and First Class Cuties 2. These sets really go well together, and you can see here you get a selection of really cute animals, but what I'm going to concentrate on today are the floral elements in these sets. Both sets have got some really lovely little elements that you can put together to make sort of a floral spray, or as I'm going to do here, a floral wreath. So you can see I've already used a die just to draw a rough circle line. I'm really not any good at creating wreath cards unless I've got a bit of a guide, so I generally tend to just draw around a die to give myself a circle, and then I can rub that out at the end. I'm using my misti stamping tool just because it makes it a little bit easier if I make a mistake with stamping. You know, when you're doing a complicated card like this where you've got lots of stamping, if you do loads of stamping and then make a mistake, there's nothing more frustrating. So at least using the misti, if I do find I haven't stamped one area properly, I can just go over it again without any issue. So for something where I'm taking a bit of time, even if I don't necessarily need a stamping tool, I do use it for something like this. So you can see I'm just working my way around the circle and deciding which elements to put where. At the moment I'm keeping it quite simple, and I'm just lining the stamps up as close to each other as possible without any overlapping. I want to keep masking to a minimum because it is a bit time consuming, so I'm sort of working my way around, and then once I've sort of filled it, I can fill in any tiny gaps and just mask where I need to. I'm using VersaFine Clair ink pad for this because I'm going to be adding watercolours. That's my sort of go-to ink pad for that because it's water resistant, and I am stamping on watercolour card. I really love this berry element to this set. So now I've kind of got to the bit where I'm probably going to have to do some masking, so I'm just working out what stamp would work nice in that little gap. So I'm going to go with that one, but as you can see it does overlap, so I've grabbed some masking paper and I'll just create a couple of quick masks. And by working my way around as I did, these are probably the only two masks I'm going to need, so it's not too bad actually in the whole scheme of things. Because I've only really got a couple of gaps to fill in. So I'm just going to trim these out. Like so. And then I can reuse these as I need to, just to fill in those little gaps. So the first gap to fill in is that last leaf stamp I want to add in. Because I'm only going to be overlapping at the top of this particular one, I'm not going to cut all of it out. Because the stem on this is quite fine, I thought it will make life a lot easier if I don't cut round all of it, just the pieces I need. So that will do the trick. Perfect. And then I've got some gaps around this other berry cluster at the top. So I can work out what to slot in there. And the good thing about these sets is you've got loads of little elements. You've got some little sprigs of leaves, and you've got some little clusters of berries. So whatever size gap, you know, you've got a stamp for it really. I'm quite looking forward to making more cards with this actually. I've really enjoyed doing this one. And for me, I do so much die cutting. It makes a nice change when I get the time to do some stamping, because I do really enjoy it. So I think this bottom area around, there is a little bit of a gap, although I have lined up the leaves quite nicely. I think it could just do with a little element. So there's another stamp in here that's just got some little berries. Looks almost like a little cluster of grapes actually, but it's going to work perfectly in that little space there. And I really like this one, so I think I'm going to try and find some other places to put those in as well, because I kind of want a couple of each element. So I'm going to slot one in up here. And then I think I am going to put another one at the bottom, just to even that out a little bit. So I'll pop that mask back on. And then I can take the mask off. And that, I think, is my stamping done. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to rub out the pencil marks. And I can make a start on my watercolouring. The watercolour paints I'm using that I've put, these are left over from last time I used them actually, I keep them permanently in this palette. These are tubes of watercolour. They are from Cass Art and it's their own brand of watercolours. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with these. They're quite a good selection of colours. And for colours that I use a lot, I quite like to buy them individually in tubes because you know, the thing about buying whole sets is that you do tend to sort of use some colours more than others. So I think this is quite a good way of getting a selection of colours that you use a lot. And I've got a couple of different greens. One's more of an olive green and one's more of a sort of grass green, because of this particular wreath obviously is mostly leaves, so I don't want them all to look just the same. And what I'm doing is I'm working my way round with just quite a simple first layer really. I'm not that amazing at watercolouring and I don't have a ton of patience. Same really with my alcohol markers. I tend to keep things quite simple because I can't bring myself to spend hours on one element. So I kind of use the same method here as I do with my alcohol markers. I'm laying down a sort of light base and then I will go in with the same colour but just less water to darken it up and just add shade where I want to. So it's really nothing complicated, and anyone that's really into watercolouring will probably be a bit horrified at my simple colouring here, but you know, this works for me and it gives me a look I'm happy with. So you know, sometimes less is more and you don't need to get too complicated really. So I'm going for a sort of burgundy colour for those little berries. And by the time I've done these berries, that first base layer on the leaves will be dry enough for me to then go straight back in and add some shading. So really simple. I mean, this is sped up, but you can see that really I'm doing it quite simply. I'm just putting dots of darker colour sort of at the base of each leaf. And it'll just give a good variety. And again, now by the time I've done those leaves, the other berries will be dry enough for me to do the same there. So I'm just going back in with the same colour and just putting a simple bit of shading around the bottom. And the other berries are so small I don't need to bother with those. So now I need a sentiment, and I've grabbed another set from Tracey Hey. Actually, this set is actually by her daughter, Georgia Hey. And this set is called Hug It Out, and I love this sentiment, so I thought that would look really nice in the centre. And I was being brave actually and not using my stamping tool for that, because it would have been a bit disastrous if that hadn't been stamped after all that work, but luckily it was fine. And I've cut a piece of cardstock just as a mat, and I've picked a sort of lilac colour because I thought it would go quite nice with those berries, just to give a little border on it when I put it on the card front. So I'll just pop that on. The card size I'm using is 15 centimetres squared. So I think this watercolour panel is about 14 centimetres by 14 centimetres. So it's quite a nice size. But of course, the thing that I love about, you know, I do really love wreath stamps. But if you've got a wreath stamp where it's all in one, you're limited by that size. The good thing about stamp sets like this, where you've got the elements to make your own wreath, is that you can make your wreath whatever size circle you want. So, you know, if you want to make a really nice big card, you can do. And just as an extra last element, I've got some white Nuvo drops, and I'm just going to scatter these around the edge. It would look equally good actually if you went for some of the clear Nuvo drops as well. Just they'd look like water drops, but I thought white would look quite nice against these colours that I've picked. So I'm just going to work my way around, just a little scattering of dots all around. And that's it, my card's finished. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to check out where I got the stamps from, it's Alpaca Pals by Tracey Hey. I definitely recommend having a look because she's got some gorgeous designs. So that's it for today. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.